Hi, it's Monday, June 23rd, Tuesday, June 24th in Japan and China, and we have several systems active today across the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to be talking about a lot of systems today going from east to west. We're going to start off with the North Atlantic as we have Invest 90L in the central subtropical Atlantic, and this system formed off the tail end of a front that had come into the central Atlantic a couple of days ago and did form an area of low pressure yesterday and looked pretty good and got pretty close to being a tropical depression. Seems like last night, though it seemed to have just missed the criteria just by a hair. So the NHC did not initiate advisories on what would have been Tropical Depression 1 if it had formed last night. Now, the system throughout the day today has been struggling to really make any progress on organization. You can see we do have a well-defined center of circulation, but what's needed for a tropical depression or tropical storm is a well-defined center and organized and persistent convection. And we really have not seen today persistent convection, and really all the convection today has been off northeast with this upper level low to the north of our system. Now there may be a slight window tonight and tomorrow morning for the system to try and develop one last time because the system is moving northeast and it's going to be coupling with this upper level low tomorrow morning. You can see this happen on the HAFS model. Let me go back to where it is now. You can see the system sitting here. Here's that upper trough or upper level low. It continues to move northeast, and by tomorrow morning, it's now coupled directly underneath of this. And this does a couple of things. One, it's lighter flow aloft, so there is less wind shear. So the system is going to be able to fire convection more centralized over the center, which it does need to do because we do have a lot of dry air in this environment, and that has made the environment around the center pretty dry. So it needs to get some convection firing here to re-moisten the environment so that it can fire more organized convection. Another thing this does is these upper level lows are cold cores, so they have colder temperatures aloft than normal. And when a system like this moves underneath of it, it can help in cooler seasonal temperature profiles to help it develop in a more subtropical type scenario. This would be not truly tropical. You can see the system has been moving into cooler waters throughout the past day on this time frame here. This is tomorrow morning. It's about here. The waters underneath of it are 23 to 24 degrees Celsius. Usually for tropical development, you need 26 to 27 degrees Celsius waters. But when you have a scenario like this where it's coupling underneath of a cold core upper level low, it can change the thermodynamic profile a little bit such that it can get by with these cooler waters to form into a subtropical or tropical system. Now, things have to go exactly right for the system if it does still want to be a tropical system or tropical depression or tropical storm, that is, as it will quickly be running into very strong shear tomorrow. You can see we do have this very strong high pressure system aloft in southeastern Canada. This is pushing east, and by tomorrow afternoon, we have very strong shear, 30 knots plus, pushing over this compact system. And when you have a system like this, very compact, shear like that is going to absolutely tear it apart, and it's not going to be able to fend it off in any reasonable manner. So after that point, it is pretty much over for development odds. Now, as of right now, the Hurricane Center still gives us about a 60% chance of development. This will probably continue to come down unless we see more organizational trends tonight. But if it does form, if it doesn't form, it's not impacting anybody. And really all this determines is, do we have a nameless June or not in the Atlantic, which on a notable part that hasn't happened since June 2014. That one in that season had Tropical Depression 1, which became Hurricane Arthur in July of 2014. So it's been 11 years since we've had a nameless June. Wouldn't mind if we went that way with this not forming. Although something to note is that a lot of people may be seeing this and thinking that this season may not be going to expectation. We've talked about before that this season is forecast to be above average, but an important note is that early season activity like this is not correlated well to overall season activity. Usually June and July are not very active. Last year was a very strong anomaly of that, and we really never see that in any regular sense. Usually you don't see very strong activity start until August or September towards the peak season months. That's, say, the true hurricane season. Even though we can get development out here, it's not really correlated to the overall season activity. So don't see this and think, oh, it's going to be a very quiet season. I sure would love that, but it does look like, just with the global pattern, that we'll still be looking at an above average season this year. So it's still reason enough to prepare for the peak of hurricane season, which is now getting to about a month and a half away in time. So it's getting closer. Now, another thing I should mention in the Eastern Pacific, we're not going to talk about it much at all. There is another system here with a high chance of development off the coast of Central America and Mexico. This system is going to be gradually developing this week and is likely to form at some point into a tropical system. Models have been showing this, though, slowing down in its exact formation time. We may see it develop more late week into this upcoming weekend. But the good news is here for those reeling from Hurricane Eric last week in southern Mexico, this system is going to likely be staying offshore, and it's not likely to be a very strong system. This is a much more broad system than Eric, so development with the system will be much more gradual as we go throughout the next several days. That we're not going to talk about this one at all until it really becomes necessary to. Okay, now we're going to move into the Western Pacific. We have a couple systems to watch here. We have Tropical Storm Sepat that formed a couple of days ago southeast of Japan. This system is similar to 90L on the Atlantic in that it formed from more non-tropical processes. You can see this upper level low off towards the southwest of the system, backing away from the system. This upper level low helped form Sepat originally, and the system has now rotated onto the northern side of this low and is now looking less sheared than it has over the past couple of days. It was pretty strongly sheared out of the south yesterday and Saturday, but now the system looks much more healthy as the sun rises here. You can see we have convection much more centralized over the low level center, and the system may have a chance to remain a weak tropical storm as it comes up towards the coast of Japan here. There is a trough digging into the Sea of Japan here, which is going to be turning the system northeast and is going to be increasing shear, at some point, but it's going to take some time, and the system will likely still be a tropical storm or tropical depression by the time it comes into eastern Japan, and we could have some localized heavy rainfall from this and gusty winds from the system as it comes northwest. You can see this happen if we look at the HAFS model. This is out to Wednesday evening, or this will be Thursday morning local time. Here's that upper trough digging in here, and notice the orientation, it's negatively tilted. So we have the flow turning more northwest on the eastern side of this trough, and that allows more divergence to occur on the southeast flank of this trough because it curves anticyclonically, or more clockwise that is, on the northeastern side of this trough axis. And what this does for this system is it allows the system to potentially tap into all this upper level divergence and doesn't really increase shear all too much. And if there is an increase of shear, this divergence can often help to offset the impact of shear, at least initially. So you can see on the system, it deepens to about 999 millibars. That's a weak tropical storm, and then it maybe weakens a little bit before it comes into land, but this would still be a tropical storm on the model coming into eastern Japan, into Tokyo on this forecast. And then it starts to get sheared and weakening from land interaction as well as it continues tracking further northeast. But it is worth noting that we could have a weak tropical storm coming through here in eastern Japan later this week. This is looking to be Thursday local time for the rough weather. And that's just something to note here for areas like Tokyo that may be in the path of this system. But apart from that, the system is really no strong typhoon threat. We don't really have very warm waters up here this time of year just yet because we are still in mid-June. Waters here do quickly drop off once you get, say, north of the latitude of Tokyo. All right, there's one more system to talk about briefly. This is Invest 96W, just west of the Philippines today. You can see a little bit of spin with some disorganized showers and storms in the South China Sea. This system was designated a couple of days ago by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center and may have a chance to form into a brief tropical storm before it comes into southern China later this week. You can see we don't have very strong shearing flow aloft. The strongest flow is really northwest of the system, with what you might be able to pick out some strong northeasterly flow with these upper level cirrus clouds, but this is well removed from this system. Now, shear is not going to be overly strong for the system, but it will still likely put some pressure upon the storm as it continues tracking northwest. You can see this in the GFS. As the system continues to lift northwest, here's the system by this point. This would be Wednesday morning local time, and we have two features over China which are going to be impacting the environment for the system to intensify. We have this upper trough digging into central China, and we have this upper level ridge in southern China, which is bringing that northeasterly flow that you can see northwest of the system right now. Now, this trough is going to be digging in and amplifying as it does so. So what this is going to do is it's going to increase a little bit of the easterly flow that we see across the South China Sea, because this upper level ridge as well is going to amplify in response to this trough. So that may result in a little bit of easterly shear impacting the storm, but it's not likely to be overly detrimental. Models are showing this being moderate shear, which the system can fend off if it does keep up the current trends that we're seeing today. The system does look fairly good just looking at it on satellite imagery. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center gives us about a medium chance of developing within the next day, and models are not really handling this too well, at least on initialization. So you see this flow is mainly easterly on this upper level flow platform, the GFS. It may be a bit different in reality because the system is better formed than the GFS is actually showing here. You can see we may have some cirrus clouds here that may be moving north in a clockwise fashion or anticyclonic fashion. If this persists, that would lead to a lower shear environment for the system to be better suited in to develop before it comes into southern China. So that's what we need to watch for in southern China over the next week. As it comes in, you can see landfall is expected sometime on Thursday morning on this model, and this is a forecast to be a very strong storm by any means, but it could definitely be a tropical storm by the time it comes in, similar to the way Sepat is coming into eastern Japan this week. It could be a little bit of windy conditions and rainy conditions here for especially areas like Hong Kong, which it would be moving into later this week. But that's all that I've got for today on all these four systems. I'll have more videos on these systems as necessary throughout this week, but stay safe in Japan and China as these two systems in the Western Pacific come ashore later this week. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.